up next, Julie Tolick is joining us, and she is going to present a talk about lawyering for humans. And I think it's a really essential piece. We were talking a little bit during the break, and it's essential for this group. I mean, these are the exact same things that we talk about, the values that we want. How do you do the work of the lawyering and yet retain that human element that's going to allow you these days more and more to communicate and connect with your clients and with the community that will produce more clients later on down the road. Julie will tell you more about her story, but she is both an associate counsel and runs her own firm at exactly the same time. So if you've ever wondered about how you can multitask, I think she can certainly help share that. But more than that, she has a very broad view of what it means to bring that human element into the practice of law and to help connect. And so with that, we'll invite her up here to give this talk. So please help me welcome Julie Tolick.
Thank you. So does everybody have some kind of writing? We're going to do some exercises. So whether it's your computer or your phone, looks like everybody has something to take notes on. So I'm so happy to be here. I usually don't use notes, but I thought of some new ideas last night and today, and I don't want to forget them. So I have my notes here because I get really into this. Lawyering for humans. So what does that mean? It's kind of twofold. As a lawyer, we're human, and I think sometimes it's often forgotten that we're human, because I think a lot of lawyers think they have to be lawyers first and people second. And then on the flip side, our clients are human, and we have to remember that our clients are not just numbers, and they're not just a statute, and they're human as well. And so lawyering for humans is kind of brings everything together and recognizes that everybody that's involved in the legal practice, both the attorneys and the clients, are always human, and to kind of bring it back to that. So I'm going to start with a little story before I get into my background a little more. I was chatting with a client the other day in my office, and he had this like 15-page criminal record, and there's all this stuff on there and they're all misdemeanors. Some of them are convictions, whatever. So he's trying to, do something about all these convictions on his record, and he's almost in tears. And a middle-aged guy. And he said, I don't know what to do with all of this. I don't know what to do. Like, this is terrible. And he's trying to apply to get his firearms license, and all this stuff is preventing him from doing that. And his one fear that he came to me with was, I don't want to be denied for my firearms license and have that denial be on the bottom of my record and like trail me forever. And I looked at him and I said, you have 15 pages of criminal history, some of them convictions and some of them not, and you're worried about somebody, the police department, denying you, and that's not even going to go on your record? I said, you have bigger problems than worrying about this denial. And he started laughing, and he said, thank you for talking to me like I'm a person, and thank you for making me laugh, and thank you for not just spouting statute at me. He said, I went to a couple different attorneys to talk to you about this, and all they said was, well, this is a misdemeanor, this is a whatever, this is statute says this, and they didn't acknowledge any part of what he was actually going through and what that meant to him. And that's what I try to achieve every day, and I think that sometimes in the law it gets lost, and we forget that we're actually trying to connect with people and help them solve their problems, and not just dictate the solutions to their problems, but to actually work together as a team. So a little bit about my background now. Law is actually my second career. I used to work for Apple as a lead creative trainer. Working for Apple is when I learned that I knew that I love to teach people and that I love to educate. And some of these pictures are old, of course, the little one with the antenna. I'm totally resting bitch face all the time, unless I'm talking about, lawyering for humans, which I get really excited about. But I had a mentor when I worked for Apple. His name is Ray. He was really influential in allowing me to explore how to take intimidating topics like learning technology and breaking them down and teaching people in human terms and in human with human systems and sitting down with a person and explaining things to them in language that they understand. And that's when I realized that I have a knack for that I'm able to do that, and that I love doing it. So there's some pictures of me working for Apple. So I studied criminology and law. I graduated in 2003, and then I worked for Apple for a couple years. I was with Apple during the iPhone launch, so I kind of feel like I'm part of like the revolution of communication. That's me dancing on the table at the first iPhone launch ever, the original iPhone. And I taught other people how to use it, and then I used, my desire and love for teaching humans grew and grew and grew. And I always wanted to go to law school, so I went back to school, went to law school, and I was going to join a small firm that seemed like they were a human firm, and I really liked their culture, their firm culture. But when I took the bar exam and went back to them to kind of do a business plan and hit the ground running, they said, well, we don't need you anymore. And I said, shit, now what? And I literally was like, oh my God, because I hadn't thought of anything else. And so I cried for a day, maybe two, and I said, okay, what can I do? What do I like to do? What kinds of things make me excited? How can I differentiate myself, number one, it was in Boston, I lived in Boston, in a sea of lawyers that are all doing the same things and saying the same things. And how can I use my own talents and my own passions and what I like to do to differentiate myself from all these other lawyers? And how can I bridge that gap, and what can I do? And I knew I loved teaching, and I knew that I loved connecting with people, and so I decided to start my own firm, and I started it as a family law firm because I thought, well, family law is such an emotional, every kind of law has its own emotions, but family law, I think for me was, I could sit down with a client and have a coffee with them and take the intimidation factor from here to here and be on the same level and let them know that I am a human too, and we feel the same things, but my training is in the law and their training is in something else. And so I started my firm as a family law firm, and I started doing estate planning. And I'm a solo, I do everything myself, and most recently I've added firearms compliance to my firm. And I didn't realize that Second Amendment law, like people get political and angry, but it's also a very internal emotional thing for people, which I didn't realize until I started working, like with the gentleman who came in that I mentioned at the beginning. And so in all aspects of my practice now, I'm, teaching humans the law and comforting them, and I love doing it, and that's what I enjoy. And so hopefully today, some of what I've learned and what I've been able to do, I can pass along to you guys to explore, to think about, to not feel so maybe uncomfortable about it or that it can't be done. Some of the exercises that we'll do are going to be kind of esoteric and very introspective. My goal is to give you something to go back with, to think about, and to think about how you're practicing, and to think about how you're communicating with people and your clients, and how that's going to grow in practice. So, when I tell people I'm a lawyer, here are some reactions that I get, and I'm guessing that maybe you guys get some of these too. This, like, okay, great, another one. And then this, no. And then this one, yeah, okay, here we go again. Now, I get a lot of this. And again, hopefully today, we can all start getting more of this instead of the eye rolling and the oh brother and the oh God, you're probably gonna take all my money, and oh, I never understand lawyers anyway. And so, in order to do this, I have a little equation. And it's passion plus personality equals persuasion. So these are my 3 P's of, you can call them 3 P's of connecting with people, 3 P's of branding is how I started to think about it, because making your brand human is also something that I'm going to talk about. And we're going to get deeper into each one of these, and they'll have some exercises within each one of these that you can do and think about. So before we dive in, let me think. Not yet. My extra note is not yet. Just a couple things about the differences between branding and marketing and advertising and everything else. Because branding is actually what creates the human connection and why people keep coming back. It's not the marketing itself. The marketing helps the brand. It's not the advertising. The advertising helps the brand. But the brand is the connection. It's what people know you as. It's your reputation. They're not necessarily, the branding and reputation coincide. They're not always the same thing, as maybe one of our exercises later will tell you. But they should be. They should overlap. And so Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, said, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And, it's very true, because you could be thinking that you're, amazing and connecting and doing all this stuff really well, but if your client goes home and starts talking about you and saying, oh, that attorney is such an asshole, I don't want to go back, and clearly you're not doing what you think you're doing with your branding, unless that's what you want to be. So the branding is a total experience of having a relationship with you. It's an experience. It's not just one thing. It's a connection. It can be visual and verbal, and we know colors go into branding, a logo goes into branding. But aside from that, aside from the tangible things that you can see, it's who you are, it's who you want to be, and it's who people perceive you to be. So consciously or unconsciously, these are all the experiences that we're creating with our clients when we're working with them. We might not know we're doing it. It might be natural to some people. For me, it was natural. It might not be natural to some people. They might think they're being cheesy or phony or fake. But there are ways to kind of figure out how to do that, and I'll talk about that today. And also, if anybody has any questions, I like to take questions as I go, as much as I can, because I think if we don't ask it then, nothing else will make sense. So feel free to raise your hand. Okay, so let's start with passion. Only passions, great passions, can elevate the soul to do great things. So I want you to kind of start thinking about what makes you passionate, why you do what you do. And it doesn't have to be law related. It can be in your own life. Like, what gives meaning to your life? What do you enjoy? With one of my colleagues, this is how I took him through the process. He was trying to come up with a brand name and a logo, and he does elder law and Social Security law, and he's kind of a stout, round guy. And he said, oh, I love advocating for clients, I like being in their corner, blah, blah. So we were brainstorming, and he said, Big Daddy's Legal Services. And I said, okay, well, I could do that. Think Pink Law is my firm's name. Come on, I'll take the risk. And I said, well, what do you like? Like, what makes you tick? Why do you do what you do? And he said, well, people don't have somebody to represent them. They don't have people explaining things to them. He said, I want to be that person. I like being that person. I like that they trust me, it's a very kind of intimate relationship. When you're a lawyer, you're talking to people about personal things that are happening to them. And he said, I like being in their corner. And I said, oh. And I said, tell me about what activities you do in your real life. And he said, well, I box. And I said, oh, okay. And you like boxing, and you're in the ring, and you're in your own corner. And he said, yes. And we said, aha. Champion, you're a champion for people. Champion Legal was the brand name that I get goosebumps. I'm such a nerd, I get goosebumps. Champion Legal is the name that we came up with for him. Champion Legal, and his tagline is in your corner. And he was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And now that we have created that branding for him, it's easy for him to remember why he's doing things, because he is Champion Legal, and he embodies it, and he thinks about being in people's corners. Because, we have bad days too as lawyers. There are times that I want to pull my hair out. And even on those bad days, I still love what I do. And it's because I'm passionate about it, and I found a way to connect with people. And so, I think actually Let's Cook Legal was our other option that we were going to do. So he stuck with Champion Legal. I don't know that he's done anything with it yet, but so your passion is a pursuit that's core to your being. Your entrepreneurial passion is a positive, intense feeling that you experience for something that is profoundly meaningful to you as an individual. Again, what makes you tick? Is it because you love helping people? Is it because you want to spend time with your family? Is it because you want to be a good role model for your kids? Is it because you were born wanting to solve problems and helping other people? And if it's about the money, that's not a bad thing either. Hopefully it's not just about the money, because we have to have something to come back to. But making money while doing what you love, if that's helping people, whatever it is the primary goal in life and working, I would say. to make money doing what you love is amazing. So if you can tap into finding what gets you up and what gets you motivated, that will start the building blocks to be able to cultivate relationships and connect with people, because you're always going to be thinking about why you're doing what you're doing. And other people, human beings, want that connection. They want to feel like you know what they're going through, or you can communicate with them. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Again, another thing coming back to passion. So kind of think about that. So here's an exercise that we're going to do, if I haven't kind of led up to it. Think about what matters to you, and just take like 2 seconds and jot down some notes in whatever kind of device you're using, old school pen and paper, computer, whatever. What matters to you in life? Is it security, emotional security, financial security? Is it being a good parent? Is it being a good advocate? I mean, these are not, mutually exclusive. You can be all of these things, but just kind of take an inventory of the things that make you want to get up in the morning and go out and talk to people and do things. Because when you don't have something like this, on those days when you want to pull your hair out and you don't know why you started practicing law to begin with, you're going to want something to come back to. And again, these are the building blocks that put you in a mindset and put you in the space to communicate with people in order to build the relationships that are going to build your practice and make those human connections. Anybody have questions so far? Okay. Oh, and another example. So the CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, says that he's not passionate about coffee. I mean, he doesn't like wake up saying, "Oh my God, coffee! Cover me in coffee." I do actually, but he doesn't. And he's passionate about customer service. He wants people that go to Starbucks to have an experience that they'll remember. Now, whether or not that always happens, that's up to the individual Starbucks. But the goal of his as a leader is to create an environment where people have an exceptional experience in their customer service. So his passion is the service, it's not the coffee. So your passion doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I love personal injury because that sounds kind of weird. I do divorce, I don't like love divorces. I hate divorces, that's awful. But I love the fact that I can sit down with somebody and make them feel like they're being heard, and make them feel like they're important, and they're not just a number, and they're not just a statute, and that I can help them. And sometimes, even if they don't get the result they want at the end, the experience that you've given them by being their advocate, by being their human advocate, is going to help them much more, and help them feel better much more than maybe even the solution, or lack of solution, the result in the end. Because sometimes it's just the journey, it's not the end. Especially in family law, nobody ever wins in family law. So that's just another kind of example of the passion doesn't have to be exactly what you do. It can come from somewhere else within you. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about personality. How do you build personality? What does that mean? Well, I mean, as humans, we think we know what our personalities are. But what about when you're a lawyer? Do you turn off who you are as a person, as a human, and then all of a sudden now you're a lawyer and you're totally different, and you're not, your friends think you're somebody completely different and they've never met you? In order to engage with people and to connect with them, you have to have some personality. You have to show your personality. And there are many ways to do this. And one of them, Steve was talking about blogging and making that, connection with people by showing them that you're an expert in the field, or by speaking to them about stuff that they want to talk to you about, to engage them. You can do this. There's a lot of stuff about social media that's going to come up later at the conference. So there's a lot of social media ways to use to build your personality. But it's your personality and your firm's personality, again, together that overlap. So Steve was saying, think of yourself as an entity and not just a person. I guess I'm kind of saying the opposite, but I think they overlap, because in order to find your voice in what makes you passionate about what you do and what matters and why that helps connect with people, you have to find your personality as an individual. And then if you have a practice where you can bring your personality in, I mean, every interaction with another human being is where you can have your personality. So you can connect with people by telling stories. People love stories. They want to know that you've gone through stuff too, or they want to know that you have something to say about something in common with them as well. So storytelling connects with people. Excuse me. Finding a voice. So if you start a blog, think about, Steve was saying, like, don't outsource it. I completely agree with that. Because your blog and your writing and your communicating with the outside world has to sound like you. It has to be your voice or your firm's voice, whatever that may be. If your firm was a person, what would it sound like? Do you write in complete legalese, which if you're connecting with people and trying to be human, I don't recommend. Are you writing in terms that they understand, which is the kind of writing I do? Are you writing informally but still professionally? Those are the kinds of things to consider when you think about the voice of your firm and what kind of a personality that creates. And a lot of these things are overlap. I mean, they overlap a lot, talking about personality and voice and storytelling and blogging and making that human connection. It's kind of a million different ways to say the same thing, and I realize that, but some parts of it resonate with people, like the blogging, the storytelling might resonate with people, or if you do, podcasting or talking, again, it's being able to show clients and other people that you're a human being and not just a robot who can recite the law and point to a statute, because people don't want that. And if they think they do and they get that, I think, and in my experience and what I've seen and heard from other people, they get turned off, and then they realize they don't want that, and they want someone to talk to them like a person and to treat them like a person. So this is me and my personality a little bit. So now I want to tell you a little bit about how I developed, let me see, it's the next one. Yeah, how I developed my brand. So my firm is called Pink Law, obviously, and it started with a blog that I started in law school, and it's Legally Blonde Boss for Boston, and the design back then was a little bit different, but this is what it looks like now, and I still maintain it, and it was about being a law student in Boston. Study tips, I would put my notes up there. If I made mind maps, I'd put them up there. Interview tips, anything that I thought I wanted to talk about and share with people, I started writing about. I started tweeting about. And I started putting on my Facebook page. And so over time, I connected with people and built my brand while I didn't realize I was building my brand. And I say this because, sometimes it just happens naturally and you'll feel it, and you'll see later on and say, oh, I did all that stuff and that's why I am where I am. But if it doesn't happen naturally, you're not to fret. You can do things and learn how to bring out these human characteristics. So I created this blog, and then when I started my law firm after I graduated, or after I took the bar and then had the other firm dump me, I was trying to think, okay, how am I going to stand out? What am I going to do? I know I love to teach people like they're humans, and I know family law would be a good way to do that, but how are people going to find me and remember my name? And I was I started my firm out of Starbucks. So like one of these pictures has me at I studied at Starbucks. Oh, maybe it was one of the first ones. Anyway, my resting bitch days pictures are all like at Starbucks when I'm like working or studying. But I started my firm essentially out of Starbucks because for 4 years while I was in law school, that's where I studied. And for 4 years, I built connections with the people that were coming in that were regulars. And it sounds kind of hokey and cheesy and simple, but that's what happens. You see somebody every day and they see what you're doing every day. They get to know you, you get to know them. They knew I was going to be a lawyer. They knew I was studying law, and my first clients ended up coming from Starbucks when I started my practice because they knew what I was doing. And so as I was thinking about, okay, so what am I going to call myself? I don't want to be law office and because everybody is a name, and I wanted to do something different. And so a lot of my colleagues, and I didn't know how I felt about this. They said, everybody knows you're pink because your blog was pink. Legally Blonde is a pink blog, pink, pink, pink. And I said, can I really do that? That's kind of, I don't know, like unprofessional or doesn't fit in. But they said, my friends were like, but it's who you are. If you're trying to do something different by being who you are, you have to embody this. And I said, all right, well, if I'm going to take a risk, now's the time. I have nothing else to lose because I just started. So Think Pink Law was born. And to talk a little bit about the branding, the logo, the tangible parts of it, I wanted a pink that was a bright color, not like a soft pastel pink, because I wanted it to be powerful and not kind of sleepy or delicate. I didn't want it to be delicate, I wanted it to be powerful. And I wanted a crest because I wanted to symbolize knowledge and academia and, kind of like a force of where people can come and learn things and I can teach them. So it's not just about like me doing the legal work for them, but where they can actually learn about the process. So I wanted it to look collegiate. And with a name like, with the word pink in it, I knew that everything had to be sharp and not kind of cursive and flowy, because pink is already in there kind of making everything a little bit softer. So I wanted to make sure everything was harder than that. And my tagline, we do law differently, is because I do law differently. I talk to people like they're people. I wear jeans to work. This is what I wear to work, both in my office and in my associate's office, and I'll talk about them too a little bit, and that's why we get along so well. I only dress up if I'm going to court. Sometimes I even wear my yoga pants to the office. Nobody's complained yet, and I've been practicing for 3 years, so far so good. But I want people to, my personality is to be comforting, and just to, we're all people. That's the most important thing, we're all people. So that's the story about how I started my firm. And I was just talking earlier, the connections that I built over the 7 years since starting law school and practicing, the people that I started meeting at the beginning, like at Starbucks and everything, are coming back now. The people that I started meeting during my first year of practice, the attorneys, are sending me referrals now. So all of this relationship building takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to leave here and say, oh my God, I know what matters to me. I'm going to do it tonight, and I'm going to connect with all these people and meditate about my passions, and then like tomorrow you're going to have 10 new clients. No, it's going to take time to build and connect with people. But as you do it, people are going to remember you, and they're going to come back. So Skylark Law and Mediation is the firm where I am an associate, and this is again a different brand, a different it used to be called Kelsey and Trask, as you can see, but it has a story behind it. It has a story that people can connect to. So Think Pink Law has a story that people can connect to. It's personality. When people say, oh, what's pink? Well, they say pink law. Sometimes they don't see the think part for some reason. They say, what's pink law? Why did you start Think Pink Law? What does that mean? Is that some law that I have? A cop asked me yesterday, he said, is that a law I have to enforce or something? And I was like, sure, you can enforce pink law. Hopefully people are coming to me then, I don't know. But Skylark Law has a story. There's an origami Skylark, and it is, we do mediation too. We try to focus on mediation, even though we do litigation as well. And it's, to be able to make your own choices, even though they are all different facets of a case or a situation, which are all the folds of the origami bird, that you can take your own path, you can use any of these different facets, and you can still have the freedom, which is the bird, to create the outcome of your case if you're doing mediation. And since we focus on mediation, that was kind of where the story of that comes from. But again, there's my page on that page. And so this is the managing partner of Skylark Law, Justin Kelsey. This was a couple years ago when he changed from Kelsey and Trask to Skylark Law. Matt Trask, the other attorney that was part of Kelsey and Trask, was a firearms attorney that handed me his practice when he left to work for another company. So that's kind of how this whole thing happened. And that's the thing you never know. Justin started out as a mentor to me when I started my practice. And then he asked me to work with him. And then he gave me part of his practice. And then he made me an associate. And so these, relationships are not just for you and clients, they're for you and other attorneys too. To find like-minded attorneys that think like you do and that want to communicate with clients like you do and want to create, a different way of doing law and kind of remember that we're all in the same boat together. You never know, when you plant seeds, you never know when those relationships are going to come back and how they're going to, either create, I don't want to say serve you, but how they're going to create more, or what connection is going to happen after that. So he wears his brand colors all the time. I wear my brand colors all the time. If I don't wear pink, people get very mad. arrogant, and they get offended, like it's something personal. When I go to legal events in Boston, and they're like, well, aren't you that pink lawyer? And I'll say, yes. And they say, well, why aren't you wearing pink? And I'll have something like purple on or something, you know, the same, like it's family. And they get mad, they get so mad. So now my wardrobe is like Steve Jobs had like his black shirt and jeans, and I have pink shirts, all pink shirts and jeans. And you know, and that's what happens. It has a mind of its own, I guess, which is a good thing. When I want to be incognito and I don't want people to know that I'm around, I don't wear pink, and it works like a charm. It's the funniest thing. So, with personality, you kind of have to become a bit of a narcissist, because you have to think about, what are you good at? What are you awesome at? What are the things that matter to you that you're really fucking good at? Because those are the things that you're going to bring out to connect to people. You're not going to want to talk about the things that you're not good at with people. You don't want to be, oh, you know, I'm scared to talk to people, or, you know, I don't know if I know that law very well. You have to know what you're good at, and you have to emphasize it, and you have to use it. And you can't be afraid to do that. I know, and there's a difference between, you know, being a good narcissist and being arrogant. And attorneys have a reputation for being arrogant. I'm not saying be arrogant at all. I'm saying give yourself the credit for the stuff that you're good at and use it, because you should and you can, and people will appreciate that. I have a quick story about personality that I thought of today. I took a trial advocacy class last year, where I registered for one. It was 5 days. I only took 2 days and then I quit. I didn't like it. Because I didn't like that they were telling me to not be myself in court. And every judge is different. Courts are weird. You know, if you stand a certain way, you'll, you know, be found in contempt if you, like, you know, I don't know, breathe the wrong direction or something. But apparently I was gesturing too much. Clearly I gesture when I talk, because I get into it. And they take a video of you in this course, and then somebody reviews it with you, and they tear you apart. And she's like, stop gesturing, why are you gesturing so much? So then I'm like this, and then I feel like a robot, but then I'm like this, and that's not me, that's not who I am. And I can't get into what I'm saying if I'm not moving around a little bit. And then, because I always have a resting bitch face, she was like, why are you frowning at everybody? Why are you scowling? Okay. So then I started kind of smiling, like a little Mona Lisa smile, so it wouldn't look like such a bitch. And then she said, why are you smiling? Why are you smirking? Wipe that smirk off your face. And I thought, oh my God, I can't win here. So I stopped going to that workshop, because I couldn't just be myself and do what I want to do. And until I'm actually in a courtroom where a judge does say, you know, don't gesture or don't look at me like that or whatever, I'm just going to do what I do until somebody tells me not to, and then I'll know that judge doesn't want me to do it. So that was interesting. Persuasion. So the definition of persuasion is to cause somebody to do something through reasoning and logic. There is nothing in the definition of persuasion that has to do with emotion or appealing to their human side, which, you know, is, can I say, like, feelings? Am I allowed to say feelings in the room full of lawyers? I don't know. Appealing to their feelings and using your own feelings to make those connections. Persuasion, by definition, is only about reasoning. So, I will offer you Aristotle's theories of persuasion, which are the three of them: ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos is persuading using credibility and your reputation, essentially. So you can persuade people by, you know, how much of an expert you are with your blogs, by how you show your expertise, for example. Pathos is persuasion through an emotional connection and appealing to somebody's emotions and feelings and making that bond with them. And logos is persuasion through logic. So typically, each of these elements, if present, would lead to, you know, good persuasion, hopefully in equal amounts. But when you're trying to make more human connections, I would say, and it's been shown, that you need to connect with emotions and feelings to other human beings. So if you take a look at how you're making your connections in your practice, and you have your, whether it's in your writing, your blogging or your informal writing to clients, or whether it's with communicating with clients on the phone, or whether it's trying to, get the next client to close the deal and actually hire you. Think about if you're using ethos, pathos, or logos, and how you're using them. And I would say, and I would suggest that really emphasize the emotional part, really emphasize the pathos, because those are the emotional, relationship-y, feeling type things that are going to connect you to clients as a human, and they're going to show that you are human too, and that's what people are looking for. Persuasion is not a bad thing. I mean, that's the end result of this, is that we want to work with people and we want to get clients, so we want to be able to persuade them. It's not a negative thing. I think some people hear persuasion and they're like, oh, it's manipulative or something. No, I'm not saying manipulate. That's the whole point of all of this, is to find what's in yourself, to do all these things so it's real and it's you and it's who you are. And you want to be authentic. And I want to take a second to talk about authenticity. Authenticity is not easy to do. If you've never really acted like yourself, and you've been in the mindset where you know that you're separating lawyer from who you really are, and if you try to start to be authentic, it might come across a little fake to people that already know you and that have already worked with you, because they're like, where did this come from? This doesn't sound like you. So being authentic actually can take work if you've never done it before, and that's why I'm suggesting doing these, introspective, esoteric exercises, because you need to find those things that are going to make you naturally authentic and not a slime ball when you're trying to connect with people. So another exercise now, and take a couple seconds to jot some notes down. After everything that I've said, and as redundant and as overlapping as it all is, hopefully there are a few things that you can connect the dots and think about how you can implement doing lawyering for humans, whether it's acting like more of a human yourself, whether it's recognizing that your clients are more human. Just take a couple seconds and think about that. If anything comes to mind, I'd like you to jot it down. And so this is kind of a follow-up. This is something that I thought of this morning. So sometimes it helps, I think, if you work backwards from the kind of relationship you want to have with people. So if you think about the benefits and the value of your service, and you think about, what do you have to be as a human being to show people those benefits and the value of your service? As advocates, what else are we? We are, maybe we're cheerleaders, maybe we're therapists, we're always therapists. Maybe we are good listener, and hopefully we're good listeners. So that's not, we should be good listeners. But maybe we are other things we hadn't thought of before that create these human touchy-feely connections with people. So if you want to have, a connection with a client and you want to make them feel like, yes, you are in their corner, what kinds of things can you do for them to know that? Are there stories that you can tell them of your own experience that aren't, that are appropriate to tell them, to make them feel like you have something in common, to make it shared, and to make them know that you know how it is, so you're definitely in their corner. Are there other resources or other blog posts that you've written from other cases that you can show them and connect with them and share with them that will help them realize and understand that you're a human too and you're making that connection? It's not just going to happen. It takes work. For me, it happened, and I didn't know it was happening, so I'm lucky because it's just what I love to do. But if it's something that you've never considered, it's not just going to happen. And you have to kind of think about these things and think about your interactions. And eventually, if you like it and you feel it, which if you're tapping into those things that matter to you, you should like it and feel it, and it'll come naturally. Then it'll just start happening. And so I have one final kind of exercise to think about. And this is a practical one that you can do with the other people that you work with and your other colleagues. And I have really good feedback from this, or people have found it really useful. So it's kind of a comparison. So if you think about what you think you're representing in yourself and what kind of a brand you think you are and what your values are and what you think other people see you as. So think about what your brand and reputation is, what you see it as, and then ask 5 other people what they think your brand and reputation is, and see if they think the same thing as you do. Because if they don't, you're doing something wrong. If they do, that is awesome. And you can keep doing it, find new ideas, keep changing it, as things come to you, brands change, brands evolve. But I think it's really important to get feedback from other people. Ask your clients. I mean, how many people actually get reviews or ask them to do reviews now? It's a really important thing, and I actually just started doing that myself, and I used to be kind of shy about it, but now I'm like, no, especially if I know it went really well, and I have emails from them saying, oh my God, thank you, like you're part of the family now. Then I especially want those people to write reviews about me. So you always want to get feedback, because if the message that you're trying to send and the human connection that you're trying to make is different from what people think you're doing or what people feel, then there's a disconnect. And you want to make sure that you can figure out what that is and fix it. Because that's the way you're going to keep connecting with people and building your brand. Friends will come to you, colleagues will come to you. I mean, once people know who you are and they have a connection to you, there's people that I talked to like 5 years ago that are coming back to me and they said, oh, we had that conversation about that story where you did that thing and now we need legal advice. And it was like something totally random. So it works, it does work. It's the oldest way to communicate. I mean, this is people connected with going back to the basics. So that is my conclusion. It is passion, personality, and persuasion is my recipe for establishing human connections. I'm so happy to be able to have shared this with you. I thank you for being here, and thanks for everybody for bringing me here. And if you have any questions, I can take them now. Okay, well, I'll be around for the rest of the conference. I don't know, am I have time? And that is all. Thank you.
So asking yourself these questions, being introspective, being vulnerable, right? I mean, it's one thing to have a plan, certainly, and to execute on that plan, but if the plan is not producing the results that you believe it should, being willing to ask yourself the questions as to why. I think that last piece of advice is so rock solid. Here's what I think we are as a firm. Here's what I think we are as an organization. Here's what I think I am as an attorney. But ask people that you can trust to give you an honest answer. What do they think? And somewhere in that, there's probably going to be some disparity, and that's a good thing, because that'll either challenge you to adopt some of those things that they may think positively about you already that you're not aware of. Have you ever had somebody give you a compliment and say, I really see this in you, and that drives a big jump in your own sort of image of what the future could look like? And then there'll be some other parts that are probably challenging and say, wow, I didn't really think that was the perception that others saw. I didn't realize people thought that I was losing my hair. That was bad.
I like it.
Thank you very much for the Ball Brothers. All right, we've got a lot this morning. Hopefully, as you go to lunch, you can start to